Welcome back to the Golden State with Mates post-game live after the Warriors get a 103-86 victory over the Portland Trail Blazers at Motor Center on Friday night. Not an inspiring performance by any means, but a comfortable one nonetheless. The Trail Blazers with an incredibly short-handed rotation. I mean, all their key guys basically out. Denny Avdia, Shaden Sharp, Anthony Simons, DeAndre Ayton, Jeremy Grant, Scoot Henderson. The list goes on. And they just didn't have enough talent to really pose a serious threat to the Warriors, as much as there was some concern early on from a Golden State perspective where they didn't get off to a great start. Portland led for the majority of the first quarter. Steph went back to the locker room with a thumb injury, which is a little bit of a concern going into Sunday's huge matchup now against the LA Clippers. But really from the second quarter onwards, the Warriors took control, led 50-37 at halftime, and throughout the second half, Portland continued to be competitive enough, but it wasn't really, again, they didn't have the talent to seriously pose a threat, and the Warriors were able to comfortably close it out and perhaps crucially allow Steph to rest the entire fourth quarter in the 17-point victory. Jimmy Butler, very good again, 24 points, 5 rebounds, 7 assists, another perfect 11 of 11 from the free throw line. So a good performance from him. Buddy Hield had his 200th three-pointer of the season in the first quarter. He had 16 points and 4 threes for the game. The Golden State had 6 double-digit scorers in this game, including Quentin Post, who made a positive return after a 2-game absence due to illness. Gary Payton II was also back after missing the back-to-back as well with knee inflammation. So it was good to see those guys back. But otherwise, the Warriors didn't really find a rhythm offensively. I think they shot, 37%? For less than 40%, 39.8% from the floor, 14 of 44 from deep, 31.8%. So not a great offensive performance. The Warriors are certainly going to need to play better than that to get a win over the Clippers on Sunday. That now becomes an all or nothing game. The Warriors, with this victory and Denver's win over Memphis, ensures that they can fall no lower than 7th. And it's pretty simple now, right? The Warriors win on Sunday against the Clippers. They get the 6th seed. They face the Los Angeles Lakers in the first round of the playoffs. That would be a marquee first round matchup. Steph Curry, LeBron James. I'm sure the NBA is probably hoping and wishing that happens. But otherwise, if they lose on Sunday, they're very likely they're absolutely, basically guaranteed to fall to the 7th seed, given the Minnesota Timberwolves face the Utah Jazz, and you'd expect them to win that game. So winning gets 6th, losing gets 7th. And probably play the Grizzlies, you'd imagine, and host the first game of the play-in tournament to try and get the 7th seed, which would obviously see you then play the Rockets. But avoiding the play-in tournament entirely, we know, has been the ideal outcome for Golden State here for a number of weeks. Thandeka is in the chat, says, beat the Clippers when they're the 6th seed. Lakers plus refs in the first round. I can't believe it, but if we actually could still lose on Sunday, then play Minnesota in the play-in and get the Rockets in the first round, I think it'd be most likely to play Memphis in the play-in after they lost against the Nuggets. Nice come from behind victory for the Nuggets, and of course, Minnesota beat Memphis yesterday as well, which was a good thing for the Warriors. Allowed them to have fate back in their own hands with a simple equation of win the last 2 games and you're in. And they've ticked one off now, albeit the easy one against Portland. And now they have the second step against the Clippers on Sunday, which will be difficult because the Clippers are still playing to secure a top 6 seed. They got a 101-100 victory over the Sacramento Kings today. I watched the last minute of that game. DeMar DeRozan had a heave at the buzzer, tough shot to win the game for the Kings. Didn't get it to go. So the Clippers did get the win. But if they lose to the Warriors on Sunday, they would actually fall to 7th because it would be a 3-way tie between the Warriors, the Clippers, and the Timberwolves. And in that situation, the Timberwolves actually have the tiebreak over the other 2 teams and would finish 5th. The Warriors would finish 6th and the Clippers would finish 7th, I believe. That's how the math works. So the Clippers have it all to play for. I think they can also potentially get a first round home court advantage as well if they win that game. And the Nuggets, I think, if they lose. So the Warriors, as difficult as it looked it was going to be in terms of all the machinations and math going on heading into the final game, it's now just very simple. You can't get higher than 6th. and you can't get lower than 7th, and you're winning your 6th or you're losing your 7th. So we'll wait and see what happens. It's going to be a huge matchup. Game starts at 5:30 a.m. my time on Monday morning, so I'll be up nice and early to watch that game, and of course I'll have a post-game live after it as well. Steve says, I don't see the Warriors beating the Clippers. This is going to be a real good test, I think, to see how they're going right now. Not only is it obviously a huge game in terms of the standings and securing a playoff berth, but I think it's a really good test for them as to where they are right now, because I don't think, obviously, last week we had the great wins over the Lakers and the Nuggets, but since then, you obviously lose to the Rockets. You beat a Suns team that was, just goddamn awful. I'm not sure you can take too much from that. And then obviously you lose to the Spurs, which is an even more painful loss now, because had the Warriors beaten that game over the Spurs, they would have already, with this win against the Trailblazers, they would have already clinched the top 6 seed, and Sunday's matchup wouldn't have actually mattered too much. Obviously, it could have mattered in terms of them moving up, but they could have at least clinched the 6th seed. Now they've at least clinched the 7th seed, but of course that means the playing tournament if they lose on Sunday. So the Clippers have had the Warriors' number over the last couple of years, including earlier in this season where they won all 3 matchups. Of course, that was a Warrior team without Jimmy Butler. He's obviously a huge factor in this. He's been really good the last couple of games here. Particularly, I thought he really controlled the second half, really allowed the Warriors to be comfortable enough to rest Steph in the fourth quarter. Jimmy kind of went into it thinking, having the mindset of, all right, I'm going to ensure that we don't need Steph in the fourth quarter. I thought he was excellent, particularly in the second half. Again, just his ability to get to the free throw line, made a couple of jumpers, made one of 2 threes. But again, the ability to get to the rim and finish, he had a really solid game. And again, Warriors needed it because they didn't get too much else offensively. Going down the line again, Buddy was solid enough. Steph had 14 points. Again, probably a bit of an issue there with the thumb, and perhaps that hampered him a little bit. I think he only shot 2 of 8 from 3-point range. So Jimmy was huge in this game, and he's going to have to be huge again. And the Warriors are going to have to play a lot better than they did in this one to beat the Clippers on Sunday. Knox says Clippers are beatable, but we just need to be perfect on both ends, which I don't see happening. The Clippers have won 7 straight games now. I think they are a really, really good team. And this is the thing, like, whoever finishes this as the 7th seed out of the Warriors, the Timberwolves, or the Clippers, like, whoever finishes 7th, assuming they then beat Memphis in the first play-in, like, that's a team that might be favorites against the Rockets, like all 3 teams. I don't know if I suppose you'd say as the 2 seed, the Rockets might have to go in favorites, but I'm not sure. I might pick all of the Warriors, Timberwolves, and Clippers to beat the Rockets in a 7-game series. As good as the Rockets were last week in beating the Warriors at Chase Center, they are young, they are inexperienced, there's question marks on their offense. Can Jalen Green, Alperen Şengün as young players step up in the playoffs? We'll wait and see. And they're going to have a tough matchup regardless of who it is. So let's hope it's not the Warriors, but again, the Warriors essentially, and Steve's already talked about this in his post-game press conference, Golden State have 3 home games now to secure a playoff spot. If they can't win one of these, we got a problem. Now, if they take until the 3rd, we've also got a problem, because that means they'll be facing the Oklahoma City Thunder in the first round of the playoffs. But otherwise, 3 opportunities. 1 against the Clippers, win that. Otherwise, beat most likely Memphis in the play-in tournament game. And if they lose that, beat one of the Kings or the Mavericks in the final play-in tournament game. But you'd hope that it doesn't come down to that. Thendicker says, I think we saw a glimpse of playoff Jimmy. Yeah, I just thought he really controlled the game in the second half. And I think that's something we haven't necessarily said too much of recent times in terms of him just getting the ball repeatedly and making plays. And I thought he did that really well in the second half. So a very good performance from Jimmy Butler. Steve says, Warriors have a Steve Kerr problem. He should be moved to head office like Boston did with their former coach. He's holding the Warriors back. Go into further detail for me, Steve, in terms of what the young players. One of the most notable aspects, I think, from this game in terms of the rotation moving forward. So the Warriors, with Peyton and Post returning, again, had their full complement of players. And they've basically had 11 players who have played pretty significant minutes here over the second half of the season. And we really saw the first casualty of what we would see as the playoff rotation, with Guy Santos not entering the game basically until garbage time in the fourth quarter. So Guy pretty much out. And the Warriors, as a result, went to a 10-man rotation with the normal starting five, which is now 16-2 in 18 games started together. You had Kuminga, you had Buddy Hield, you had Kevon Looney, you had Quentin Post, and you had Gary Payton II as well. So if you look at the minutes off the bench, again, this game didn't really need huge minutes for the starters. Jimmy played 28, Steph 27, Draymond 29, Pod's just under 30. And then off the bench, Buddy 22 and a half minutes, Kuminga 17, Looney 15 and a half, Post 15 and a half, Santos again 5.5 in late in the game. Peyton. Sorry, I don't think I mentioned Peyton. Peyton played 14. So Kuminga, Peyton, Looney, Post, and Hield all basically between 14 and 22 and a half minutes. So it's going to be really fascinating to see someone else going to drop out of that. I don't know. I think there's specific matchups where maybe you can only play one of Looney or Post. I thought Quentin was really good in his return game. I thought, solid enough. Obviously, he only missed 2 games through an illness, so it's nothing too significant here, but it was nice to see him drill a couple of threes. I thought in the game against the Spurs on, when was that? What are we at? Friday, American time. So that was Wednesday, US time. Trying to get my days sorted out here. I thought the Warriors really lacked that extra 3-point shooter in the kind of Draymond, Jimmy-centric lineups to start the second and fourth quarter. I think they really missed him there, and I think that's going to be an important spot. He's always kind of going to get those few minutes at the start of the second and start of the fourth, I think. Interesting to read the ESPN article today, kind of talking about, there was one rival Eastern Conference executive anonymously basically saying that he'd be surprised if he/she, whoever it was, would be surprised if the Warriors were able to continue playing heavy Draymond small ball center minutes in the playoffs, and that they expected that Loon would probably come back into it a little bit more, which is a trend we've already been seeing a little bit. And I think that's something that may continue just because Loon is one of Steve's favorites, really. And we know he tends to step up his game in the playoffs. We know what he did to Sabonis a couple of years ago in 2023 in the first round series there. It was a huge factor, probably the second best player for the Warriors in that series behind Steph. So are we going to see more Looney potentially? But obviously that comes with offensive limitations. Are we going to see Quentin Post a little bit more? It really is just going to depend on the matchups. I think if you play the Lakers in the first round, if the Warriors do clinch the 6th seed and play the Lakers, that'll probably allow you to play a heavy dose of Draymond small ball minutes, because we know the Lakers are going to want to play small ball as well. But there's plenty of time to analyze that if that actually comes to fruition and the Warriors can win on Sunday. A few more comments from you guys here. I don't want to go for too long. I'm not feeling great. I went out last night and watched the footy at the pub. Pies got a win, which was good. Celebrated that with about 20 beers. So I'm not feeling great, to be totally honest. And it wasn't a hugely inspiring game, this one either, against the Trailblazers. Logan says, friggin' Sacramento so close to beating the Clippers. Of course, we get a game winner hit on us, but the Clippers don't. Yeah. I mean, Harrison Barnes, that's again, the Warriors, they still hold fate in their own hands, which is good. But it would have been nice if they were able to win that game and we could at least go into Sunday's game knowing a playoff spot is clinched already, and we don't necessarily have to worry about the result from that standpoint. But again, the Warriors still have 3 home games here to secure a playoff spot. You'd assume that will happen. Finicius might be a new person in the chat. Welcome if you are. I love our chances against Rockets in a first-round matchup. Lakers, not so much. Wouldn't mind if Kerr rested the vets for the Clippers game. I can see where you're coming from. We've spoken about that for a couple of weeks now in terms of getting the 7th seed and potentially playing the Rockets and that being a more preferable matchup. So I can understand where you're coming from. It just won't happen. I think you're better off just securing the playoff spot, not flirting with the play-in tournament. Even though, yes, the Rockets might be a more favorable matchup than the Lakers. I get it. That's not going to happen, though. Steve's going to want to win that game and ensure he gets a full week's rest for his key guys and his veterans, particularly Steph, Jimmy, and Draymond, before the first round series gets underway. Steve says this is in relation to the Steve Kerr problem that he alluded to. The Spurs game, he, as in Kerr, reverted back to experimenting with the 3-guard crap. This caused them the game. This guy is obsessed and doesn't like playing the strength he has on the bench. Yeah, the 3-guard stuff, I don't know. Like, I think Buddy has played too many minutes the last two games. Where he played like 25 against the Spurs. He played 22 and a half in this game, albeit he played well in this game. I'll give him that. And I think Buddy Hield's 3-point threat and his sheer 3-point threat to opposing teams. Like, teams are always going to guard him. And come playoff time, that could be even more important, particularly as defenses load up more on Steph and Jimmy. So I'm not sure Buddy Hield, his minutes are going to go down too much. Now, it's still going to be a case of, balancing out when he's playing well and when you simply, there's going to be moments where you just simply can't have him on the floor. So we'll wait and see what happens. But you're going to need Buddy Hield and his sheer 3-point shooting threat. And I think it's the same with like Quinton Post as well. I think as inexperienced as he is, at times that might be a concern. But with his 3-point shooting, you're going to need him as well. My biggest concern, I suppose, in terms of the 3-point shooting at the moment is the Warriors shot 14 of 44 in this game. Not great. Moses Moody, like, what did Moses shoot from three in this game? Again, he missed a ton of threes. He was 2 of 5, actually. He was 40%. Maybe I'm lying. It just feels like his 3-point numbers. I think I saw a stat yesterday, the last 13 games, he's under 30%, which is not ideal. He was 3 of 10 from the floor overall, so it was more so his work inside the arc that was more concerning than his 3-point shooting. But just feels like Moses has tailed off a little bit and like regressed a little bit from the absolute best form he was in a few weeks ago. So hopefully he can lift that up. We know defenses come playoff time, they are going to want to say to the Warriors, all right, we're not letting Steph and Jimmy beat us. It's going to be Quinton Post threes, Moses, Draymond, Kuminga, whoever else, basically, even, Buddy Hield, right? Can Buddy Hield beat you with, 20, 25-point game? That's what defense is going to ask of these guys, and we'll wait and see what. And it's the same on the other side as well, right? Like, the Warriors are going to say to the Lakers, all right, LeBron, Luka, Reeves, you guys are going to have to be playmakers. Can Hachimura hit threes? Can Finney-Smith hit threes? Can Gabe Vincent hit his threes, right? That's what the playoffs are about often. And it's about the superstars battling through that and still making a huge scoring impact. And that's what Steph and Jimmy are going to have to do. Thendeka says, let's say we lose to the Clippers, the playing game, we would be on the 15th. Win that game, that's 4 days of rest. Is it bad? No, it's not a disaster by any means. And again, like the Warriors, if they do lose on Sunday, which is a chance, again, like I don't know what the odds are going to be, but it's probably pretty 50-50. I think the Clippers probably slightly better form right now, match up well with the Warriors previously. Again, albeit that's before Jimmy Butler's arrival. So the Clippers might be better, I guess, but maybe the Warriors being at Chase Center, that brings it back to a 50-50 game. We'll wait and see. But at least you can say, well, if they do lose that game, they've still got 2 more opportunities. Again, you wouldn't want to get to the third of those opportunities. And then if therefore, even if you win that, have to face the Thunder in the first round. Knox says the starter played heavy minutes for the Clippers. You think that could be a factor on Sunday? Potentially. Let's have a look at the minutes in that game. Don't you? How banterous is it as well that after the Rockets beat the Warriors last Sunday and fought really hard and played really hard, that they've since basically just rested all their guys against the Lakers on like two games against the Lakers. Well, was it one against the Lakers, one against the Clippers, whatever it is? Just stupid. That's how it falls though, unfortunately, and good on them for being in a position where they can have the luxury of resting their guys. Sorry, just looking at the Clippers Kings game here. Kawhi played 42 minutes and 20 seconds. Went for 28 points. Powell played 36. Zubac 36. Harden 42 and a half. So they are big minutes, particularly for Harden and Kawhi. Look, it could be a factor, maybe, but I'm not reading too much into it. Like the Warriors got plenty of rest against the Suns on Tuesday and then came out and were pretty sluggish the next night and had to have their starters play big minutes and obviously lost to the Spurs. So it could be a factor, but I don't think it's going to be a defining one necessarily. You're just going to have to do better than the Clippers on the day. Steve says, free Kevin Knox, free TJD. Unfortunately, at this point of the season, we're not going to see that, I don't think. I think this rotation is what it is. I thought TJD might have had an opportunity with Quinton Post being out for that back-to-back, and I thought his minutes in the first half against the Suns were pretty good. And then he didn't really get much of an opportunity against the Spurs, which I found a little bit surprising. Given that it's the case, he's not really going to make a surprise return or anything now. So TJD basically is done for the season outside of garbage time. And he's just going to have a big offseason to try and get back into a role for Steve next season. I think it's in him. It's been a disappointing second half of the season for him. He's still on a great rookie contract. I wouldn't be trading him or anything like that. I don't think his value is necessarily high enough to get too much. So just going to have to be a big off season for him. Does he play Summer League or something like that? It'd be weird after starting so many games at the start of the season to then be, a Summer League player, but maybe he needs it just to, I don't know, try and expand his game somewhat, because as he came into the league, like I always had question marks on, this guy's 6'9". Yes, he's very athletic, but he's undersized. He's only 6'9", and he doesn't score the ball from anything else other than dunks, really. Like, he certainly doesn't extend beyond the paint, and even his finishing around the paint isn't great. So it's going to be a big offseason for him to try and develop something offensively, I think. Otherwise, the athleticism is great and he can be a presence, but he's still a very limited player. And therefore, carving out an NBA future is still, going to be a question mark for him. And in regard to Kevin Knox, he's another one. Those guys aren't going to get an opportunity. I think Braxton Key might get the 15th roster spot on Sunday. But yeah, I don't think any of those guys are going to play minutes moving forward. This is the rotation. This is what it is, and it's only going to get shortened. You're not going to see guys, come into the rotation. Surprisingly, it's just going to be shortened. Guy Santos probably the first casualty of that today. Logan says Sunday the whole league will be watching that Warriors Clippers game. Going to be a massive one. Looking forward to it. Again, 5:30 a.m. my time. Logan says, you think DeRozan was fouled on that last shot attempt? I don't think so. Let me rewatch it. Let's have a look. Quarter 4. I'm watching it now. Inbounds comes from Lyles. Done on him. I don't think so. I think Zubac did a good job of keeping his arms up and basically saying to the ref, I'm not fouling him. Look at me. Yeah, it would have been a ballsy ref to call that, I suppose. I don't know. Berserkmug says Blake Griffin was also undersized and couldn't shoot lol, but way more athletic than TJD. Eventually, Griffin actually became a decent shooter. Yeah, like, I'm not sure. I can see the comparison, but I'm not sure that we should be comparing TJD to Blake Griffin. And Blake did become a pretty good, particularly with his injury issues, in the latter half of his career. Really weird ending to his career, it must be said. I used to love Blake Griffin, but he was, injuries got to him, and then he was just a shell of himself. I remember, thinking, a couple of years ago, like, is this a player the Warriors should have interest in as a guy who can be a semi-legitimate three-point shooting spacer from the 5 position as like a small ball 5-ish, even though like he was 6'10" or whatever else. So he wasn't super small, but yeah, it's a weird way to end his career, and a disappointing one, it must be said, because he's a guy. How old is Blake Griffin? He's not that old, is he? Is he like, I don't know. How old is Blake? Is he like 34? I feel like he's not that old. No, it's okay. He's 36. But still, I feel like he should still be playing if it wasn't for his injury concerns, obviously. Valerez says, yep, foul, but they ain't calling that. Yeah. I mean, it's a tough one. Again, I agree with you. It's just, it'd be a ballsy call from the ref to call that, and you probably don't want that defining the game. So anyway, is what it is. I might finish it up there unless anyone else has got any more comments. Again, I need to go rest up, get some sleep. It was a bit of a late one last night. Been going for over 24 minutes here. Warriors get the win over the Trailblazers, which that's all that matters at the end of the day. I don't think they played overly well, particularly offensively. They were pretty deplorable. Just fortunate that the Trailblazers just didn't really have enough. I mean, they didn't have any guards whatsoever, Portland. They were, I suppose, Delano Banton was their point guard. And outside of that, they got like Thibault and Kamara and guys like this who are good 3-and-D guys, but in terms of, creating off the dribble and stuff like that. You probably don't want them doing too much. And Donovan clinging and when he's taking jump shots and stuff like that, you're living with it, that's for sure. So Trailblazers, very disappointing offensively. The 86 points that Golden State conceded were actually the least of any opposing team this season. So a pretty good job from the Warriors defensively. But again, Portland basically didn't have any of their top 5 or 6 guys. So a solid enough win. Again, not taking too much from it. Logan says, need playoff Jimmy. Empire says, that wide open layup Jimmy passed up to give Green the 3 was crazy. I feel like Jimmy knows people will say something, so he does it on purpose to troll us. Man, I actually jumped off my seat. I can't believe I haven't brought that up in the first 25 minutes of this live stream. I cannot believe that happened. I jumped off out of my seat. I was like, what did I just watch? It wasn't even a layup. It was a dunk. He could have dunked it. He was right at the rim. I'll tell you what, it kind of reminded me like, if that happens in the playoffs, and he's fortunate that Draymond made the 3, right? And it wasn't even off his pass. He kicked it back out, and then I think it got kicked to Draymond, and then Draymond made the 3. If that happens in the playoffs, that was Ben Simmons-esque against the Hawks, right? Perhaps worse. That was incredible. And so, again, it doesn't really matter in a game like this, whatever. But don't be doing that. Don't be doing that in the playoffs. Logan says Jimmy needs to be very aggressive during the playoffs, taking over games. No more of this passing. But yes, I thought he was really good today. But that one play, that was wild. That was the wildest play of the game. He stepped through. Portland gave up. Portland weren't even anywhere near him. And then he was just like, here's a layup / dunk. And he kicked it back out. It was truly extraordinary. I couldn't believe it happened. All right, we might finish it up on that. Otherwise, yeah, good game from Jimmy Butler, no doubt. The Warriors get the win. What was that? Their 48th of the season. Would have been nice if they beat the Spurs and won on Sunday also and got to 50 wins. That would have been a nice mark to get to and an impressive one, particularly where they were. Where were they? Like 25 and 26, I think, on the night of the Jimmy Butler trade or something like that. So a really solid stretch from the Warriors. They're now, I think, 23 and 6 with Jimmy in the lineup. So they've been really impressive, but it's going to be a tough one on Sunday. And I think they're going to have to play better on Sunday to beat the Clippers than they have over their past few games. Thank you very much to all of you guys that have tuned in. Thanks to those of you that are watching on replay or listening via your podcast feed. If you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel already, that'd be greatly appreciated. Follow me at POK252. That's POK252 on X/Twitter. I'll be back bright and early, post-game live stream at, what's the game? Starts 5:30 my time, so I suppose 8:30 a.m. my time. I'll probably be weary and tired still, and I'm not a great starter of a morning. I'm more of a person, a night owl that can stay up late, but doesn't generally get going too early of a morning, so it'll be a bit of a struggle for me, but I will be setting my alarm and up nice and early for that one. Thanks again, guys, and I hope to see you at that time on or Sunday American time, Monday morning my time here in Australia. Let's hope the Warriors can clinch the 6th seed with a win over the Clippers.